I'm Max Sterling. Welcome to LarpGasm. So today we're going to talk about distressing clothing. So whether you're doing this for a LARP or cosplay or a Halloween costume or like a haunted house attraction, or maybe you're just trying to be, edgy and fashionable in the street, or you just discovered crust punk, or whatever the situation may be, this is the video for you. This is going to be a long video. It may even be more than one video, but it's going to be very informative, and it's going to teach you a lot of techniques. Some of the stuff you may have seen before, but I think a lot of it's going to be new for you. If everything doesn't apply to you, I still suggest watching the entire video, and then just go back and pick out the parts that apply to what you're trying to do and rewatch them, okay? This video I'm making specifically for a post-apocalyptic costume I'm making for a LARP. Okay, so whenever I talk about things, I'm going to refer to post-apocalyptic scenarios a lot, and that's basically what I'm trying to do here. However, everything that I do in the tutorial and the how-to is going to apply across the board, no matter what you're trying to do. Like I said, just pick and choose what works. As far as, if you're not into LARPing, well, that's fine. I mean, maybe you're some high school kid and you're like, I don't want to listen to this nerd bullshit about LARPing. Well, just mute the fucking video, watch what I'm doing, and then just copy it. And that's all you have to do. If at the end you found it helpful, click like, subscribe. Maybe there's other stuff you enjoy on the channel, but you don't have to be into LARPing to want to distress your clothing, okay? This is great for Halloween, whatever the fuck you're trying to do. This is not distressed clothing. This is a t-shirt with the sleeves cut off because I'm a dirtbag. If you want to see videos of some guy stabbing scissors into a t-shirt, you can go watch a tutorial on Billy Buttfuck's channel, okay? That's not what this is. This is an educational, informative tutorial, and you're going to learn some shit, so make sure you pay attention. Alright, as far as post-apocalyptic costuming goes, there's two very important things you need to consider. One, what caused the apocalypse? And two, how long has it been? Okay? What caused it? Was it zombies? Was it aliens? Was it nuclear warfare? Was it a cataclysm? Was it the rapture? Did demons come? Was it, fucking asteroids? What caused the apocalypse? Okay? Now, if you go to a LARP, they probably already have a backstory, and you can go based off of whatever they say. Okay? Maybe it was viruses or something. Whatever they say caused it, that is what, your aesthetic is going to be based on. So what I mean by that is a nuclear warfare scenario versus a zombie apocalypse are going to look very different. Nuclear warfare, everything's irradiated, there's fallout, maybe heavy acid rain, lots of windstorms, dust and stuff. So I'm thinking earth tones, everything's going to be dusty and dirty. Your hair might be dreaded from not having a lot of water to do stuff with. You may have to wear a respirator or a gas mask, goggles just to go outside, probably layers to try to block the radiation, and really that's sort of the aesthetic for that sort of era. So think maybe something along the lines of like Raiders from the Fallout video games versus zombie apocalypse, where maybe you're just wearing your street clothes, but they're a little bit fucked up. They got blood splatters on them. Maybe a sleeve is ripped off from someone trying to like hold you back or drag you down. Maybe you're wearing mismatched socks or something like that. Just whatever it is, but you're probably not going to be that much different from normal everyday. So think about like Walking Dead, like season 1 or 2. So there's a big difference between seeing those folks in the Walking Dead series, like in the beginning, versus Raiders from Fallout and stuff like that. So it can be night and day depending on what caused the apocalypse. Because like viral outbreaks and stuff, you may always wear like a surgical mask, or you may have like an entire suit that you wear. If it was aliens, I mean, maybe you always have, guns on you or knives on you, or, some sort of like special glowing things or props. It can just be so different depending on what happened. If it was something where it was a heavy military involvement, maybe you have a real heavy paramilitary vibe. You have a lot of surplus gear that you wear and stuff. So, like I said, it really depends on what happened. And also depends on, of course, your character and how you want them to be. But really think about what caused it. Second, how long has it been? Has it been 6 hours? Has it been 6 months, 6 years, 60 years, 600 years, 6,000 years? When did it happen? Okay, if it was 6 days ago, you're going to be the same. You're going to be wearing t-shirt and jeans, yoga pants, hoodie, jogger, warm-ups, tennis shoes, whatever the fuck you wear normally, that's what you're going to be in, okay? It's probably going to be a little bit dirty, have pit stains. Like I said, it might be a little ripped. If you get shot or stabbed, maybe there's a hole or something in the shirt, but you're going to have a pretty low level of distressing, okay? Versus if it's been 6 months or 6 years, your stuff might be in pretty shitty shape. I mean, you may have a lot of holes, you may have had to patch things, you may have, you know, patchwork pants, like maybe you had to rip a leg off of another pair and try to sew it together. Things may be a lot more messed up than if it's only been a few days. So keep that in mind. Now, if it's been a long time, so like say 60 years or maybe, you know, more, then you're going to want to start thinking about less mass manufactured things and start thinking more on like a medieval sort of mind frame, because if people run out of clothing, they're going to have to make clothing. So when you start making clothing, it may be made out of non-traditional materials. Like maybe that's when you start getting armor made out of, you know, spare tires and stuff. But you're also going to see like a lot of like linens and like wool and stuff like that, because people are going to have to return to those old methods to make fabrics, and also a lot of leather probably. Assuming there's animals, you know, that are there to be turned into leather, you probably see a lot of leather as well. So you're talking about the difference between, say, like The Road Warrior, the first Mad Max movie, where people are still wearing jeans, t-shirts, you know, leather jackets, versus the final Mad Max movie where everyone traded in that stuff, you know, for athletic pads and bondage gear. So huge difference in aesthetics between those movies, and the look, you know, varies drastically. So that's what I'm talking about. If it was a recent apocalypse, things are going to look a hell of a lot different than if it's a long time, you know, from when it happened. So in addition to figuring out what type of apocalypse it was and how long it's been, you're also going to want to think about geography and also what type of hardships your character has been through. So by geography, I mean, where is your character located at? Where are you coming from? So let's say you're out in the desert, you know, somewhere on the West Coast. It's real sandy, a lot of sun. Your costumes will be a lot different than someone who, say, you know, is experiencing the apocalypse, you know, East Coast, you know, in the north, like, you know, upstate New York, Maine, something like that. So if you're in that sort of California desert, your costume is probably going to be a lot of sand type colors. So we're talking about reds, tans, light browns, whites. You'll have a lot of coverage because you want to cover as much skin as possible to keep the sun off, but it's going to be light fabrics. And if you do layers, it's going to be light layers, not heavy stuff like motorcycle jackets, because you're going to die from heat exhaustion. You may also have a mask and goggles, definitely something to cover your head, some sort of hood, you know, maybe something that you just wrap around your face. And basically pull some of your inspiration from real life people that live in those type of environments, and then sort of go from there. But you're not going to want to have woodland camo in a desert setting. It doesn't make any sense for the aesthetic. Same goes for, you know, if you're in, say, you know, the East Coast and the northern areas where it snows a lot, there's a lot of rain and stuff, you're not going to want to have those light layers and bright colors, because you're not going to blend in and you're going to freeze to death at night. So you're going to want to have, you know, more heavier type things. You can do a lot more layers because you stay, you know, more warm. You may want to have something that stops the rain, you know, maybe an umbrella or something like that. You probably won't need respirators or maybe goggles and things of those nature. I mean, you can certainly still have them, but it may not be a part of your everyday life. But wearing something like spikes on your boots may be a part of everyday life, so you can walk on ice and things like that. So keep these things in mind. Also, you know, things like woodland camo, perfect in that type of environment. Also, things age differently depending on where you're at. Now, if you're out in the desert, things like metal, they're going to last a lot longer. So if you have metal pieces on your armor or anything that's metal, it's not going to be as worn as stuff that's, say, in a climate where they experience winter and a lot of rain and moisture. So if you're in sort of those dry climates, your metal pieces may still have a lot of paint on. They may just be rusty around the edges, as opposed to something, say from, like Maine, where it's going to be completely rusted out and completely screwed up. So think about these sort of things in terms of aesthetic, because once you determine where you came from, it's really going to sort of give you an idea of which direction to put your costume into. Also, things like if you live near a beach, say you're in Florida, I don't know, and you're near a lot of beaches, maybe having something like a snorkel is part of your costume because you do a lot of diving for food or things like that. Just those little things, will make a big difference. Maybe instead of goggles, you have a pair of, goggles for swimming, though not something like welding goggles, but actually like swimming goggles. That's what you have. So just these little pieces will all add up to create the overall picture and make it that much more believable to you and bring that character to life. Now, as far as hardships, where your character is located at, what are they doing on a daily basis? I mean, are you someplace where there's still forest? Are there a lot of fires? Are you someplace where there's a lot of like raiders or other humans that you're interacting with that are shooting at you? Are you someplace where there's a lot of really harsh chemicals, maybe harsh acid rain, a lot of, walking through chemical spills, stuff like that? Are you in some place where it's always sunny during the day, so you're constantly being, beat down on by UV rays? Or are you someplace where maybe it's a little bit more wild and feral and you're constantly under animal attack? So, I mean, what I mean by these hardships is that you want to take your costume, and this is how you're going to begin to distress it. Now, it's going to need to look aged and roughed up, but add in this element of your daily hardships and struggle to bring it to life even that much more. So if you're someplace where there's a lot of raiders, shoot bullet holes in your clothes, make it look like you get shot up a lot. Okay, if you're someplace where there's a lot of animal attacks, guess what? A lot of claw type marks, a lot of bite type marks, puncture things, a lot of furs maybe on your costume and armor. If you're someplace where there's a lot of harsh chemicals, use bleach and dyes and things to make your costume look like you're getting covered in these chemicals and that they're staining your clothes. If you're someplace where it's always sunny, you're going to want to make sure that your clothes are really faded. If you're able to put your clothes outside and have them just sit so that the sun's coming down, so that they're faded in a gradient, so that it's like real light up top and then it gets a little bit darker as it goes down, as if to signify that sun always overhead beating down on you, go for that. These are the things that you need to consider because this is going to tell a story. Before someone even talks to you, they're going to be able to look at you and tell a story and say, okay, this person looks like they're from the desert. This person looks like they're from the forest. This person must live near the water because they have a snorkel on them. This person, it looks like they get shot a lot. This person looks like they just wrestled with a bear. This person, I'm afraid to talk to them because it looks like they're covered in hazardous chemicals. But these are the type of things to consider. So when you start adding up all these little individual components and you get it all down on paper, then you can begin to plan your costume. A lot of people just want to go in their closet, grab some old t-shirts and stuff, cut some holes in it, and call it a day. There's nothing wrong with that, but if you want to take it to the next level, this is what you're going to want to do, some prep work. And if you have the money, go out and buy the clothes. If you're strapped for cash, maybe try like Goodwill, some yard sales, stuff like that to get the clothing there and pick the pieces that you feel will make the costume work. And if you have to make it real basic at first and then gradually, as you find stuff over time, implement that, that's cool. But if you can go out and just start and make it the correct way the first time, it's going to be much better for you because, well, costuming is fun. I don't know anyone that really wants to make a costume every single year. Adding on to or, repairing stuff is cool, but making a whole new costume, it gets old after a while. But some things to keep in mind are distressing versus destroying. And a lot of people don't even cover this. But if you're making a one-time costume for like Halloween or cosplay or something, you can destroy it. Okay, you may want to really fuck that shit up so it looks really jacked up, okay? It's not going to be that functional, but it'll probably be fashionable for what you're trying to do. Versus distressing, where if you need this thing to function regularly, so you want to wear these clothes to school, you want to wear them to the mall or to the skate park, you know, or when you're hanging out or whatever, you're in a band, you want to wear this shit on stage for a whole tour. Whatever the case may be, it needs to still remain functional. So for me, with LARPing, this shit's going to have to last years, okay? I don't want to have to make new distressed clothing every 2 or 3 months or every year. I want to make this once and have this shit last for at least a year or two, okay? I'm not trying to fucking do this all the time. And if you destroy it, that's what's going to happen. Because if you make something and you run it through the washer and it doesn't survive, then really you've wasted all that time. So distressing versus destroying. And we'll talk about, you know, where you want to be depending on what your project is. For me, I'm looking at distressing, and I'm going to show you how to basically reinforce that distressed shit to make sure that it's functional and it lasts, which is something not a lot of people tackle, so pay attention to that part. One last thing to consider, of course, is your venue. Now, if you're going to an event or it's Halloween or something, you probably don't have to worry about this, but if you're going to a LARP, you're going to need to know what class you're playing and what race you're playing, and if there's any costume requirements for those classes or races. A lot of LARPs you go to, they're going to require you to have certain aspects to your costume. So you may have to, you know, look, you know, like you have a military vibe. You may need to look like a mutant, or so on and so forth. So there's going to be certain things that are expected. So depending on your actual game, you're going to want to read up on the rules and know if you have any sort of those requirements, because those are going to be super important to meet when you're making this costume. They should be able to be added in without a problem, but I would suggest thinking about those aspects early in the build process as opposed to an add-on after the fact, because if you can incorporate them as you're creating the costume, it'll be a lot easier and they won't look as thrown together last minute as if you wait till the end and say, oh yeah, I forgot, you know, I need this to look military, so you just go out and buy an ammo belt or something. You want to incorporate that into the entire costume, so maybe you actually start with, you know, some sort of fatigues or something, and that's what you actually build the costume off of, as opposed to just building it off of jeans and a t-shirt. So please keep those aspects in mind. They're very important. I hope you liked this video. Please remember to like and subscribe, and don't forget to share this channel with your friends. Let them know that it's out here. I have lots more post-apocalyptic videos on the way, including how to actually make these costumes that we're talking about and planning right now, and they're going to be a lot of fun. And as always, adventure on. I'm Max Sterling. Thank you for watching this video. Please continue watching part 2.
Max,
I heard your broadcast on Wasteland Radio. You've got to come with me.
where? I haven't even finished this video yet.
Back to the future.
Why? What happens? Do I become an asshole or something?
No. You turn out fine. But something's got to be done about your viewers, Max.
Well, looks like I gotta go. Be sure to check out part 2 of this video. And I guess let me go try to figure out how to save the viewers here. Just let me go grab my gnomish goggles.
Don't worry. Where we're going, you don't need eyes to see.
What the fuck?